expands your world.
All right, we are
We're doing live show?
live. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Mamluks podcast. My name is Sim. Along with me is my co-host, Sheikh Amr Saeed Al-Shankiti on the saxophone. That purple background back there looks like you should be on the saxophone. You ever played saxophone, Sheikh?
No, I haven't actually. I barely used to know how those plastic flutes. Remember, you used to get in elementary school those plastic flutes with the holes. I never figured those out.
Remember Arsenio Hall's show back in the 80s?
Yeah,
He had like a purple background.
Arsenio Hall show.
You kind of look like you look like that right now.
Oh, really? I wish I was a skinny. I wish I had the same body fat percentage with
Here, so you can see on the screen what you look like. You see this purple background?
Oh, I thought you said I look kind of like him.
No, you don't look like him.
Oh,
You look
I
like
kinda
you're
wish
on
I
his
did.
set.
Oh, okay. I wish I had his body.
You
fat
don't
percentage.
look anything like Arsenio Hall. Why would you play yourself up like that, Sheikh?
You're right. My bad, bro.
You gotta have a talk with your teachers.
Gotta check myself.
Anyway,
What
we have a
about our
wonderful
esteemed
show for you
guest?
guys. We have Robert
Whitaker.
Lefleur.
Dufour.
Lefleur. He's trying to get extra French, bro. Sorry about that.
You're not Lefleur. He's
Dufour.
Dufour. Lefleur is from Dodgeball. Did you see Lefleur?
It's also a hockey player.
No. Did you see the Dodgeball, the movie, the comedy?
I haven't gotten around to seeing it yet.
Oh my God, that's one of the all-time best.
And there's a reason why Sim is saying
Vince
that
Vaughn, yeah.
about a comedy.
Yeah, but we'll get to that later. Esteemed guest, Robert
Yes.
Dufour. Dufour, right?
Dufour. Dufour.
Dufour.
Yeah, you got it.
Anyway, so I'm such a horrible what's
Racist.
that anchor, introducer of new guests. Anyway, Islam for Europeans is the effort that Robert has started, and we wanted to bring him on and show to the world the awesome effort that he started. I've always been an advocate for the white man. Have I not?
And it's Islam for FOU. Like,
I feel like white people are
Number
always
4,
just
right?
hated on. It's in fashion, Robert. And welcome to the show. I brought you on to clear the name of the white man, and hopefully you can represent them well enough.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. Jazakallah khair. I guess this initiative was actually not completely started by me. This was started by a Russian brother,
Russians?
a dear brother.
We don't like
his
those
name is
either.
Harun Sidorov. We've been talking several times over the internet. And it's good because we have a bit different perspectives because he's in Europe proper, in Russia, whereas me, I'm a white convert living in Canada, in North America, basically. So everyone's experience is going to be a little bit different. This initiative, we feel, is a solution to try to provide solutions for everybody. So currently, right now, especially in North America, we see this real divide between Islam, the Muslim world, and the West. Me, I converted to Islam in 2003. From a mostly all-white town, in Canada. So coming into Islam, and I just dove right in. I went, straight to the mosque. Absorb myself into, the Muslim community, which is a very different, a different mixture of people from all around the world. So, but when I would go there, I would go to Windsor, which is, there's no mosque in Amherstburg. So I drive to Windsor, which is a half-hour drive, get my Islamic experience, learn the Quran, learn about Islam, make contacts with people. And then afterwards, I would drive back all the way to Amherstburg, and here I'd be in my white town all over again.
So what was the community of masjid that you were visiting? What were they? Be honest, please. You're not going to
Well,
offend us if you say Indians because
Well, because
it was the umbrella masjid of Windsor, basically. So
Okay.
you have your
Windsor is
umbrella.
near, for those who aren't familiar with the geography of the United States and Canada, Windsor is like one of these border cities right between Canada and the United States. They're very close to Michigan, which is the capital of Muslim people in America. There's just an exorbitant amount of Muslims in Michigan, probably the highest concentration in the country, perhaps.
Yep. And oddly enough, per capita, Windsor has the biggest concentration of Muslims, even more than Toronto, percentage-wise. So,
really,
Yeah.
I didn't know that
like
because we
20
always
plus-
hear Toronto. Yeah, okay.
yep. I
So
mean,
it's-
there's a huge Muslim population in Toronto, but Windsor is so small that the Muslim community is like, it's got to be like 10% or something. So I was quite fortunate. Those 4 years, I was pretty much, put up on a pedestal like all the other white converts. Like I had some other good dear convert friends of mine, from all backgrounds, like white, black, Latino. So back then, like, they were trying to figure out how to, keep converts in the community, because what I was noticing is that so many people will convert to Islam, and then a couple weeks later, or a couple months later, you just don't see them anymore. So it was quite tragic, to me, it just couldn't fathom why this was going on. So,
I mean, they just stop showing up, or
Dude, would you
Yeah,
mean to
picked
leave
up-
Islam? Like,
it's a mixture of things. Someone, like there were a few who, sadly, like got caught up with the, anti-Islamic rhetoric, either from the internet world or, directly from their family, or
the pressure, yeah, man.
pressure from their family. Others, it was almost too difficult of a cultural adjustment. I guess the one, kind of commonality of being a white Muslim is, now like you're either resented or lionized by pretty much everybody. So there's white
always
people
thought-
who don't like Muslims. There's, there's some resentment from the Muslim community towards white people. Other Muslims, they want to put you on a pedestal and say like, this guy's going to be our Daenerys Targaryen, like white savior that's going to, take us to the next level. So, here you are getting completely caught in the middle.
yeah.
And, all that does is just create more resentment, so, and again, you're just thrust into a totally different culture, placed into these high positions that, you're just not ready for. You don't understand the culture. And, meanwhile, like the African-American brothers, they're not getting like the credit they deserve either. They're not equally getting to those same positions. So, I think, like the Muslim community, they meant really well. They, when someone converted, they knew that like, that we had high attrition rates. So they're trying to do everything they can to try to keep us in there. But at the same time, they're not really realizing this kind of enormous cultural gap. Not just the fact that, we come from totally different parts of the world, but also because, we're just coming into Islam. We're in preschool here, and you guys are teaching like graduate level stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a whole bunch of combination of factors.
We just assumed whenever white people stopped showing up at the masjid that they were informants. Like, why blame us? Like, hey, our education was perfectly fine. Why
Like,
should we
yeah.
assume any responsibility on them stop
And
coming?
there's a reason why Sim's being a little comical here too, right?
Why?
Because he has a little bit of a comedy background and relatives and family.
I don't have a comedy
Not
background.
you, our
Oh.
esteemed
Yeah.
guest Robert
I thought
Dufour.
it's not always about me. All right. Yeah, Robert, you came from a background, family that was heavily involved in comedy.
Yep, my father was a stand-up comedian. It was his career. He did a lot of work. He traveled all around the country. He met stars, celebrities before they became famous. And my dad and my mom, they ran the only comedy club in Windsor when we were growing up. Yeah, it was called the Comedy Corner.
Nice.
And his friends, my mom and my dad's friends were basically the comedians that would come over from Detroit. So it was like a brotherhood, the friends that my dad grew up with were all comedians. So, they would come over. We had Jim Carrey stay at our house. We had
Get out.
Shut up.
Yeah.
I
no,
want
wallah, yeah.
I want to see some pictures.
I could show you.
I love Jim Carrey. Dude. He's awesome. I saw the whole documentary where he did the whole Andy. What was that guy's name?
Kaufman.
Andy Kaufman. he played Andy Kaufman in a movie, and he talked about the entire process in a documentary. It's really amazing documentary on Netflix. So check it out if you have a chance. But it talks about like his whole journey and how he framed his mind. Anyway, I'm getting off topic.
No,
sorry,
cool,
Robert.
cool.
Go ahead.
Tangents are cool.
Who else stayed over at your house?
Who else stayed over? That's all he's concerned about now. Forget about Islam's for Europe. Who stayed over at your house?
Yeah, no, it was fun. It's it kind of being in a comedy family, like like you it sort of warps your sense of humor. So like you kind of develop a sense of humor different than everybody else because you hear all these jokes day after day and hour after hour, and you'll see comedians when they do a comedy show, the whole crowd's laughing, right? Then the back of the comedians, they're not laughing at all, right?
Yeah.
Then a comedian will say something and no one in the crowd will laugh, and all the comedians will be just in raucous laughter because they have a totally different sense of humor than
So how is it like living with somebody who's a stand-up comedian?
It was difficult. It was kind of like my dad was. It was kind of like being in a trucker's family because my dad was he made a lot of sacrifice. He would travel all over the place. So for weeks, just be my mom taking care of me and my brother, and he was out, earning a living and staying in these terrible motels, and sometimes he'd drive to a gig and the club would close down.
Oh man!
Oh my gosh!
So, yeah. So I mean, it was a very difficult job. I mean, you're in seedy environments. There's a lot of fitna going on there. So, but at the same time, comedians, they have a very nuanced, very smart observations on the world.
Yeah,
and
that's why I was thinking, obviously you inherit some of that just by living with somebody who does comedy, but your observing skills are probably much more different. Do you think that had anything to do with your coming to Islam at all, like that upbringing and living with somebody who's a comic?
Well, I was big. One thing it did do is it just made me very inquisitive about why things actually are the way they are. So you have to look at the world a different way, I think. Yeah. In 2002, 2003, around the time when I started learning about Islam, I was big into the conspiracy theory movement. So I was like,
So was I. Yeah.
Yeah. So like
Alex Jones and stuff, right?
No, more like David Icke.
Oh, David Icke, yeah, of course. David Icke is the lizard guy.
Lizard people.
The lizard people.
Okay.
Nowadays, he's completely distanced himself from that whole.
That the human being are lizards and the people up in power are lizards, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
The heads of the world are actually lizard people, and if you mention that to him, he'll punch you in the face. He does not want to be associated with that movement anymore. But go ahead.
Right. So when I think what attracted me to Islam was basically the scientific miracles of the Quran at the time.
Really? I finally met one of you guys. I always wondered who actually converted from these scientific miracles.
Were you actually serious?
I'm serious. I never met anyone. I was heavily involved in the dawah back then. At least in the online thing. You'd always mention these scientific miracles and stuff, and people would it's all observable, and they would always pass it off, saying you talk about the stages of the fetus and stuff like that, right? Those are the commonly used examples that a lot of Muslims in dawah peddle, at least. And then you would always hear back from other people saying that, those are observable events. You can see it from a woman having a miscarriage and things like that. These are observable things that could be completely attained through the observable reality. So you can't use that as a miracle in the Quran. So anyway, you are the black unicorn.
Yeah, basically, because.
You're a white unicorn. I'm sorry.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Wow, there's a whole lot of...
Sheikh Amr gave me this look. No, he's not a black unicorn.
By the way, you don't mind these indirect things about...
Oh, his website is Islam for White People. Oh, sorry,
Europeans.
Europeans. Sorry.
Islam for white people.
What if it's a white supremacy Islamic website?
That's what I was actually hoping for. I was like, dude, I want to see something like this.
We're raising awareness for the white man who's Muslim.
Would be so boss, dude.
I know.
That
I
would
can
be
like
so. It'd be like the complete enemy of like it's a nation of Islam.
Remember, like the skinheads in Europe would be so confused with the white Muslims marching against them. Like, no, we're white and we're proud to be Muslim.
That would be so confusing, bro.
Yeah, they show them a Quran like, you see this? It means not welcome.
He's not welcome.
Like a Muslim
That
Derek
would be a
Vineyard.
true sign at the end of times.
Wow, yeah, that was American History X reference. That was pretty deep, man.
Oh, yes.
This means not welcome. But so as far as the process of becoming Muslim and then becoming Muslim, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how did you mention this to your father, like, or
Yeah,
your
being
parents, and that I want to be a Muslim?
Yeah, like I didn't tell my parents anything in this 8-month process of me studying Islam. I go basically listen, read about it on the internet like late at night, and I did that for about 8 months, and then I had some spiritual, it's really strong things happen to me, which sort of spurred my conversion as well. So it wasn't just about the scientific miracles, but after I converted, I was like, oh man, I have to tell my family, like how they're gonna take it, like I was really nervous about it, and then when I went to one of my dad's comedy shows. It was like a charity event he was doing, and then I took him aside. I'm like, look, Dad, I got to tell you something. Like, he had this worried look on his face, like, what is it, son? So took him aside. We went to another room. Sat down with him, and just like, Dad, I converted to Islam. And then he's like, oh, congratulations! So he shook my hand. Like, it was that, alhamdulillah, it was that simple. And then afterwards, he's like, I thought you were going to tell me you were gay.
That's funny.
That's what do you think he would say if you said the latter?
I don't know how much he would have accepted.
No, I'm just joking. So, yeah, man. So how's it been ever since then? I mean, I remember you were saying that there's an experience and there's a reason for Islam for Europe, and what's the driving force behind this? What's the initiative?
So, 16 years of being a Muslim and living in the West, and living between two totally different worlds, I didn't kind of thought to myself, like, what's the solution? And recently in the last couple of years, this has escalated so much, not just with, I think Donald Trump is a huge catalyst, but, it's been creating more of a rift, and a lot of Muslims, kind of out of necessity, they feel threatened, and they feel, like they need to have allies.
Yeah.
So when I went back to university and I went back to graduate school to do my master's, I really saw this firsthand, because a lot of the Muslim youth, they were either getting, it's basically one of two fields. You're either going to the MSA, the Muslim Students Association. These are more for like the practicing Muslims, and those are like the kids who really wanted to reach out. Like they wanted to, like help Muslims establish, find a place to pray, to establish connections and reach out to the non-Muslim community. Like no matter who they were, because they were like the old guard. Like when I converted in 2003, like this was the prevalent attitude. Like, they were inspired by, the early stories of the early Muslims who, like they were oppressed by, like the pagan Arabs, for so long. But, like the whole message of Islam was like, no matter what, you keep preaching the message, and like, you keep being good to your family, like you establish connections, even with the people who don't like you. And then like from that, they see the beauty of Islam. And then, they had that mindset in their head. And even in contemporary examples, back, in 2000, after 9/11 occurred, like Islamophobic incidents would happen. And then Muslims would be like, let's, instead of, let's take the high route and let's like open our doors. And then so many people, even if they hated Muslims before, they ended up converting, so this is what inspired them. And then that's one group. And then the other group, like a lot of them were more troubled youth, like they weren't really practicing that much. And they would join like the nationalist organizations.
I see.
And, they weren't really practicing. So, and these nationalist organizations, they didn't really have a connection to Islam. Like the big nationalist organization on campus, like the president was a murtad. He was an ex-Muslim actually. So like they didn't mind allying with all of these different groups on campus, even if their beliefs were totally opposed to Islam. I mean, I can understand why, because they feel like they need to have allies, because they feel like, like, is this white guy on the bus going to attack me? the only white people they knew, coming to Canada, were cops, border patrol, and like people they hear online. So that's a really poor, pool of white people would be to know. I mean, just superficially. Whereas me, like, I grew up in this, a totally white town. So I know it was more like 50-50. It wasn't like, 90% of the people hate us here and 10% of us think we're okay.
Yeah.
So, it was a lot. It was, I saw it firsthand, this struggle between, two different visions of what the Muslim community would be. Are we going to, reach out to the people who, are on the fence or neutral or maybe not even like us, and open our doors and show them what the true Islam is? Or like, are we going to, take the protest route where we, we'll have the vigil, we'll get angry, we'll go to protest, we're allied with all these left-wing groups. But when it comes for Salah time, we don't go there if we want, but we don't, we have no obligation to follow like Islam as a religion. So,
yeah.
So,
this article's cool.
Robert, we're actually, while you're talking, we're just perusing through the Islam for Europeans website.
And it was on so the audience can see it too.
Yeah, so the audience is watching this, and we're just saw an article here that
I like this one.
Had me kind of curious. White Muslims marrying each other would be good for the Ummah. This is my...
Yeah.
Now,
So
now that's a loaded term. Oh, you're gonna incite some kind of backlash for this. This is something that...
No, let him explain himself.
Explain yourself.
Even though you don't have to explain yourself. That's not what I meant by that. But what can somebody expect in this article?
Well, so this is an alternative solution to the kind of like the to the Edward the Longshanks approach, where it's like,
you've been listening to our show.
So so one recommendation is, this is followed in the Muslim world for hundreds of years. When you look at Islam in China, when you look at Islam in Pakistan, when you look at Islam in Malaysia, Islam looks like the country in terms of the culture, the architecture, the cuisine, the dress.
Mm-hmm.
When Islam spread to these different countries, a lot of them converted as whole communities. So there wasn't really, like a complete lack of spouses, from that within that same community. There was intermarriage, and I mean, like, not saying that's haram. I mean, like, no, it's many times this is important, for people of different cultural communities to, like the Prophet would do it, to form alliances between tribes, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, it wasn't for everybody. So, like coming into Islam, you're, you have to learn how to pray, you have to learn a totally different lifestyle, you have to give up things that are haram, and to go into a totally different cultural community on top of that, where you don't understand the urf, the traditions, it can create a lot of confusion. So the solution that we're finding is, that we suggest is have at least a percentage of, like Caucasian Muslims, establishing their own, community, sub-community, where we still pray together, we still eat with the whole Muslim community, just like every other, Muslim is doing. We all pray in the same rows together, but at the same time, like we have the Pakistani sub-community, the Somali sub-community, the Arab sub-community, who each have their own needs. Like the Syrians, the community, when I was living in Toronto, I went to their Eid prayer, and, like, it was all Syrians, but at the same time, like, they didn't say, okay, you're not Syrian, you can't pray here. My wife's Syrian, by the way.
Yeah.
It was important. Yeah.
The idea of having a mixed community versus a segregated community.
Yeah.
I mean, the automatic assumption is always that the mixed community is better, that we, all merge into this nice little melting pot of various races and ethnicities, and we all, produce these nice tan babies at the end, 1,000 years later,
I know it's yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, what you're proposing is that maybe that's not the right idea. Maybe
it's not always. It shouldn't always be the option. I think what he's saying.
It's not a panacea. Like for some people it works. Like they can marry into a totally different culture. And let's be honest, like many Muslims are not comfortable marrying into another culture. Like like like
It's
a lot of Muslims will
it's
say,
politically incorrect to say, but it's totally within the realm of reason that there's certain cultures or certain types of people who just don't blend with different types of
right.
people.
Yeah.
So what we're suggesting is, and we said we had a little interview on the phone before, and you said that for white people who convert to Islam, we need you guys here. Like yeah, like it's important for some of us to go overseas and learn the Deen, and
Yeah.
there's that place for that. Absolutely, we need people to learn scholarship from all cultural backgrounds. But
Yeah.
for someone like me who was born and raised here, grew up in a totally white town, I mean, I would love to give dawah to my own community. It's just I'm only one person,
Yeah.
and if we have even a small established community, we can act as advocates for the greater Muslim community. And I think the Muslims who are getting into social justice activism, who are more on the left, there's something in it for in this concept for them as well, because we feel that it's our responsibility, because this is our qawm, that we have a responsibility to give dawah to these groups, to set up discussions, to set up debate with them, because we have that we grew up in this culture. And and in terms of the marriage, it's when you have two converts marrying each other, it definitely makes it a lot easier. But at the same time, you feel like you're giving dawah not only to your family but also to your in-laws as well, and they have this opportunity firsthand to see how a Muslim marriage works, within their own culture.
Yeah.
And by that, we can organically grow, our own sub community from the ground up. Like I said, I'm not saying all white Muslims should marry each other. This isn't like I said, I'm not a Muslim version of Derek Vineyard. This isn't Muslim History X.
Darn it! I was hoping you. I was hoping.
I know it sounds cool, but
it sounds really cool.
It would be, what a scene it would be, having Jonathan Brown and Joe Bradford all marching a bunch of white Muslims down the street. Rights for white people. White power.
Muslim power.
White Muslim power.
That'd be dope.
What other white Muslims are there? Murad, right? There's that guy. Abdul
Yusuf
Hakim Murad. Who else?
Suhaib Webb.
Suhaib Webb. Oh my God, that would be. Imagine him marching for white people, dude. Oh my God. I love you, Suhaib Webb. Don't worry.
I think the idea, people think, and I think it comes from a place of weakness, inferiority in some issues, where in some instances where people think that if the masjid is not multicultural, then automatically there's something wrong with the community.
That it's not welcoming. Well, in Chicago, because
feel-
Chicago is a very segregated area, right? It's a very a lot of the different towns and cities are very much divided along ethnic lines.
Yeah. And I think that's what plays into it, is that when you grow up in a place like Chicago, let's use that as an example, and you see you're the only brown dude in a masjid, for instance, some people, they'll feel that, okay, I'm not welcome here, and whatever the case is, I don't really feel like that a lot of times, but I know a lot of people do. But it's kind of like,
I know, I'm so glad you brought that up. But, Sheikh, that sentiment is there for a brown person walking into a black mosque.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like,
it is.
or any other mosque, or Arab mosque. How many times have we gone to Arab mosques when we were young, and none of the Arab brothers talked to us? Did we sit and cry and say, the Arab brothers are not welcoming? But whoever we engage with, they treated us with respect.
Yeah.
And all the courtesy that is deserved, or all the hospitality that you would expect to receive if you interacted. But if you're going to go sit in the masjid and you're going to be like, nobody came and talked to me, well, it's not probably because of your skin color. It's just probably because you didn't engage with anyone, or you didn't have any interaction or any meaningful social discussion that would warrant some kind of...
No, but the other thing is that people, since, let's say for Chicago, we expect a masjid to be... It's a good masjid if it was multicultural, right?
Yeah.
For many people. And if you didn't go and do your part and just talk to people, like you said, you shouldn't be complaining if no one talked to you. And then, the other thing is that if it's not multicultural, automatically you see things that aren't even there.
Yeah.
Like just because somebody looked at you, certainly was like, oh, I could tell he's racist because I'm the only brown person here. No, dude. A lot of times it's
That
your own
attitude
weakness.
is there, man.
Yeah.
It's a very childish attitude.
It
Because
is
I
childish, it's toxic,
remember when we were kids, we would have that kind of attitude, like, oh, that dude, he's not talking to me, or something, because it was the mindset of a minority, is that you're not being welcomed by the majority. It's always just like you're everything is confirming this bias that you have in your mind, where you are looking for people to not accept you for who you are. And any type of behavior that fits into that model that you set up in your mind, you're just kind of confirming this idea that, oh, you know what, it's because I'm brown, or it's because I'm black, or it's because I'm this and that, or I look like this. And it happens it's not just with ethnicities, it's with people with disabilities, people with psychological issues, whatever it may be, whatever is. There was this one saying, on a TV show, that someone had a deformity, and one of the characters in the show said, "Wear it like a badge of honor." And Robert, you probably know what show I'm talking about, but wear whatever deformity or whatever thing that is making you an outcast, wear it like a badge of honor in the way that you are. You're not letting people think that you are weak by that identity,
Yeah.
And I think that's something so profound, in the sense of someone being whatever category of minority you might be, whatever intersection you may fall into. If you have built this mindset where you kind of elevate yourself into owning your identity, then I think there.
I think the world changes.
Yeah, I think the whole paradigm changes here, right?
It has to, and that's I think that's where a lot of bravery and courage comes from too. Is that you may feel a certain, and people see that if you're using whatever you have as a weakness, people see that you're using that as a weakness. It's something that we sense as human beings, bro. It's something that's there.
Oh, whatever your insecurities are, they're so much more on display than you think they are. Like, whatever you feel like is something that you can be attacked with, people pick it up and they're like, you know what, this guy is someone who is still figuring things out. I'm not sure if I want to be around him.
Yeah.
And that's the way it has been with not several, but a few converts that I've interacted with at the masjid, of various different ethnicities. They haven't really owned their identity yet. And they're still like, you can tell by their eyes that they're like searching for some kind of slight that is going to come towards them from me or anyone. They're just like, they're always on guard, and they're like, okay, well, here it comes. Here's where I'm gonna be not accepted by the community. And it's not that at all. It's like maybe the idea you gave in a committee or something. Maybe it was just genuinely a dumb idea. It didn't have anything to do with your identity.
Brutally honest. I like it.
So these are some of the problems. It's not necessarily a Muslim issue. I think it's just a human issue. I think it's something that every community, whether it's Christian or Muslim or what have you, they struggle with.
Yeah. Robert, do you think that we're being a little too un-PC here for you?
No, I welcome it. I mean, it's an important issue. I mean, when I first converted, I was like this too. We used to think that any type of division or any type of mosque where it's predominantly one ethnic group is a bad thing. Like it's racist, like you're not being inclusive. And, after, being several years, as a Muslim, you're just like, like maybe there's utility in having, people having a place where they feel at home and they have their identity, but we don't want to go to the other extreme where it becomes something like nationalism. I think, a lot of Muslim, like imams, leaders, da'is, we have to understand where they're coming from too. A lot of them were impressed by nationalist governments. A lot of them saw that the fall of the Muslim world was due to this, the Muslims were disunited. So when they come to a lot of them, when they come to the West, they go to the other extreme where they say, we get totally the same. We're totally, everyone's the same here. we're gonna act. We're all Muslim, and we're just gonna pray the same, dress the same, talk the same, act the same, and any
Yeah.
other type of proclivity to your own culture, that's haram. So it sounds good on paper, but when it comes to Muslims in a like in a minority, like say if you're the only like white convert or black convert in your own city, or your First Nations, that is really going to wear on you because they have an established sub community, they have a Muslim heritage, a Muslim background,
Yeah.
a Muslim identity. They have family members that are Muslim. They have all these advantages,
Oh
and
yeah.
them saying, like, okay, we're all the same. Well, we have none of this.
You're right.
So,
And there's so
I
many
think,
cultural things. Sorry to cut you off, but Muslims do a lot of cultural things that preach that everyone should have the same culture. They do a lot of cultural things when it works in their advantage, And that's, I'm being completely honest, and that's the reality of it. But when it comes to, for some reason, when it comes to reverted Muslims, they're like automatically starting with all the strict stuff of cultural things right away.
yeah, I know
Yeah.
it's unfortunate. And on top of that, we are, like I said, we're just learning Islam. Like we're going day one. I mean, like the Sahaba were the best nation, and it took them 13 years before any ahkam were revealed.
Yes,
Sah. I
you're
mean,
right.
it was just la ilaha illallah. There was no, you didn't have to pray 5 times a day. You didn't have to stop drinking. Here, like we convert, there's none of that. It's like day one, okay, let's do it. Like
Yep.
5 times a day, and then on top of that, you have this cultural adjustment. It's a huge issue.
Yeah.
But I think in the United States, many converts that also belong to minority groups in America, they figured this out, and more power to them. I mean, like the African American, sub community, they started Islam. Malcolm X, and like Worthy Muhammad. I mean, like it was a struggle for them, like ideologically. Like it wasn't like all neat wrapped up in a neat little bow. I mean, they really had to struggle to build their like sub community to be this large. Latino Muslim community, same thing. I mean, like they just established their first, Spanish Muslim organization. So those are all more power to them. I mean, like we support them absolutely fully. And with us now, it's just we're the last piece of the puzzle, but it's just so un PC. I mean, like like it's just like wow, like like it's gonna it's going to bother a lot of people, especially our allies, because a lot of some people that Muslims are allying with, they don't even think white people should be Muslim. I mean,
Yeah.
like
Whoa, wait,
So
what's
the
that?
whole thing is,
Oh, yes, yes, yes. That's what you mean. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's in to make fun of white people, right? And it's like, and look, one of the cool things that I've always noticed, at least, is that white people never let it really bother them too much. It's just like, well, because I think in their mind they're the norm, or they're the majority, so they never really feel threatened by any of the jokes or the insults or anything that's coming towards them. But I know now in recent days, it's become more vicious, more. I think even though they say, like, we're not, a lot of the social justice movement, they say, oh, we're not talking about white supremacy based on skin color. We're talking about ideology. Well, you're making an ideology you're giving the name based off of skin color. So you're
Yeah.
naming, you've lumped all the inherent evils of capitalism under someone's skin color.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's like an escape thing that they use in a lot of their arguments. A lot of the people who are proponents of critical race theory, they'll say, oh, well, we're not talking about white people in the sense of white in the skin. It's about the ideas that came from the white people of the Enlightenment period who utilized colonialism and other vehicles to exploit the indigenous populations of people around the world. But the only problem is that label is still sticking. Like, you could still use colonialism, right? You could still use many other terms like capitalism or what have you to explain the horrific nature of exploitation and slavery and all the other horrible things that have happened throughout history. But you've assigned it all under a category called
Yeah.
white supremacy.
Yeah.
And that in itself is, I think, a little bit problematic. I don't know what
Yeah.
you think about that, Robert.
Well, I mean, look, like the Muslims on the left, like I said, I'm reaching out to them, like like I can never understand what it's like to be them, fully. Like, and I get that, they would have a lot of problems with a white guy trying to, like have, speak on behalf of Muslims. And I think with this concept that we have with Islam for Europeans, we're not trying to speak on your behalf. We're working on our own people, and this is what Malcolm X elucidated in his autobiography. And you can read the quote on the website. He actually advocated for, like, he didn't say white Muslims, but he said white people should work on forming all white groups and concentrate on giving on, like working on lowering racism in their own communities. That's the best thing that they can do. But like you said, it's not a, like there were, you look at the history of the last 300 years, especially, like with the West and colonialism, it wasn't that black and white. I mean, there were, like, and we have this on the website too, like writers like Nietzsche and Goethe, who were very pro-Islam. I mean, Goethe actually, he converted to Islam. He became a Muslim.
Yeah.
Nietzsche talked about, like the fact that, like, we as, the German people are being used by the church to go through these crusades. We didn't want anything to do with this.
Yeah.
So there was this huge struggle. And then you had, like, like the anti-slavery movement in the United States. People who wanted to end, white people who wanted to end slavery, who fought and died in the Civil War to try to end slavery. So, and even in England, like, they made slavery illegal in 1807, and they spent like I think a quarter of their budget, trying to get rid of, like, slave ships. So there was a huge, yes, I mean, there was slavery going on in Europe. It was horrible. It was horrific. It's awful. But like, to throw the baby out with the bathwater, then saying it's all, like people with white skin. I mean, it's not that black and white. I mean, there were Europeans who lived during the Raj who converted to Islam. I mean, like, it's, so.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned people like Nietzsche and stuff, and in my mind, if you study some of his work, you will come away with him being possibly the greatest philosophical mind in the contemporary era, at least in his outlook on many different philosophical subjects related to meaning in life, and you'll even eventually find a lot of parallels with Islam as well. I'm not suggesting the listeners go out and read Nietzsche and stuff. It's just there's a whole lot of stuff that can be problematic as well. So I don't recommend him unless you are a student of knowledge and are able to decipher many different of the nuances that
and have studied, like, in specific, not just student knowledge, but aqidah and with the philosophical understanding, not just reading aqidah text, but understanding, different philosophies and how to refute those philosophies and all that stuff.
There's so much benefit that he has, and there's so much pearls of wisdom that he's provided in his work that it's undeniable that he is, with, at least in my mind, that his contributions have affected pretty much everything. When he said that God is dead, he wasn't saying God is physically dead. Like, he's not talking about it on religious. He's talking about what's happening from this moment on to the end of time or whatever. That this humanity has removed the parameters of faith and religion, and they're going towards this liberal route, this libertine route, where they are no longer restricting themselves to the laws and the edicts, whatever the church has provided them. They're now completely on their own and have no regard for faith anymore. So, and there's so many other things that he's talked about. I hate to get off the subject. It was just, I was reading Nietzsche this past couple of weeks, and I was just like, man, he mentioned Nietzsche. I have to talk about him a little bit. But Robert, what else do you recommend new visitors to your website check out?
Okay, we've written some articles as well on, basically reaching out to, like I said, Muslims who are more, like on the social justice warrior side, are points for dialogue between black and white Muslims. Because, even though, like, I'm a white convert from Amherstburg, Ontario. I don't know what it's like to be a black convert from South Philly. But at the same time, we do have many commonalities in that, we're both born and raised in the West. A lot of us are converts, and a lot of us have to navigate through, a lot of the masjids from new communities, new Muslim communities here. So, like we have points for commonalities
Oh,
there.
so
Yeah.
here's a point here. Something that I've been kind of advocating. Point number one. This is under the article "Our Points for Black and White American Muslims Dialogue." Point number one. Who's this written by the way? Is this written by you?
Me. Me.
Oh, cool.
Okay,
Do you
oh,
do
cool.
most of the writings on there?
So
Yeah, about maybe 30%. There's other. We had Umar Lee. We
Nice.
didn't fully endorse it, but we wanted to get his perspective as well.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Now-
number one, you were saying so?
So number one, white Muslims are tired of being chosen as the white saviors for immigrant community. What the hell? Why are you tired? It's your only job. You have one job to be our saviors, and you don't want to do that. We will reject these stations unless we advocate that black Muslims should be given that same types of positions at the masjid. Why? We will reject these stations unless we... What do you mean? Oh, so you're saying that you...
As the white person, they're not going to take those positions of leadership if you're given to us if you're not given the same respect to the black
That's fair.
community.
Well, how
Exactly.
awfully considerate of you, white man.
Anytime.
Hey, I warned you about this, bro. I told you we are going to be a little loose. So
Oh man, this is
Wait,
nothing. I
but
went
I'm
through
loose
for-
not
I went
in
through
that
4 years
sense.
no,
university.
but listen, this is what I'm saying. Okay, when I used to watch Dave
Dowd
Chappelle,
Hornsby?
Dave Chappelle, there's something really true. Like again, there's a difference between ethnicity and nationalism, right? There's that. But what I'm saying is this: ethnicity and nationality. I'm sorry. All I'm saying is, if I'm driving in a car, you think I'm joking? I'm half joking, but I'm being serious. And I get pulled over, I would love to have a white Muslim convert with me, bro. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Because every
you're
time
talking
I get pulled over, a lot of cops think I'm half black or something. A lot of times I get pulled over, I get searched and everything. I don't even dare have the audacity to be like, I know my rights and I'm not going to do this. I don't consent to. Yo, I just get out. First, I put my hand on the steering wheel. Yes, officer. I'm the sweetest person in the world. And he says, can you get out of the car? I said, yes, sir. I'm going to put my hands on the hood, sir. And I'm not going to say anything until you ask me. I tell him everything I'm going to do. Right? But the few times that I had a convert brother with me, look in the car. How you guys doing today? All right. And I'm good. So Muslims, make friends with the converts.
Make friends with the white man.
Make friends with the white man. But just use them as your driving buddy, bro. Don't put them in high stations right away as soon as they convert in masjids, bro.
Dave Chappelle had a skit also as well. Like when he went back to DC and he did his skit there. It's just like, like some of these gangs have like 1, 2, 3 white dudes. Just like,
It's like,
like,
I
and
wouldn't want
they had to do some stuff to get in there. So don't mess with those guys. Like,
like those are the scariest.
I think
dudes.
I think it's actually a good thing. I'm imitating Dave. It's like because it's a good thing for them to have one because at some point somebody's gonna have to talk to the police.
Yo.
Oh man. Oh, Ernie.
He's so
come
right.
on.
He's so right.
So I get it. Like like they want to have like white people there at the mosque. I
Yeah.
mean like especially for the open houses and stuff.
Yeah.
But even if we had our own organization, even if it was small, I mean like think about it, like a white guy like verbally attacks like a Muslim woman on the bus, and then she can be like, here, this is the card of American, white American Muslim organization. Talk to them, we'll take it from there. Like it's like a referral,
Yeah.
So I mean, like I said, that's the best thing that we can do because we're trying to bridge this gap. We're trying to, and I mean, they have legitimate fears. I mean, like all they hear about Islam on the day is all day on the media is terrorism and people riding trucks through crowds and like
Yeah.
other FGM and forced marriages and all this stuff. It just comes at them day after day after day. I mean, like all these movies and everything, and
Yep.
like it's a miracle that not everyone hates us. I mean,
Yeah. You're right. You're right.
so I mean, like that takes a long time to be able to break down. I mean, like like I was married to a convert once before, and it took a long time for me to like make try to present the slowly, like trying to get them to be comfortable with the fact that I was, that was
Wait,
Muslim.
what kind of convert? Which ethnicity?
Another white convert.
Oh, white convert.
Yeah, yeah.
You didn't like her?
Oh my god.
No, I'm
It
just
didn't
saying.
end. It didn't end
I
well.
think you don't like.
To
There's
leave it at
another way
that.
to ask. I know I know he comes from a comic background. I know all that. I know it's funny. It is kind of funny, but
He knows me, that's why.
Okay,
I can joke
okay.
with him, all right?
Yeah,
We're
maybe
boys
in
now.
private. I apologize,
Yeah,
sir.
it's fine.
All
Don't
right,
worry
I'm
about
just gonna
it. But
apologize on his behalf.
I mean, what was I gonna say? Yeah, I mean, like, yeah. So instead of being this white savior, I mean, we can be white consultants. I mean, like, like
White consultants, yes.
Consulting
And white
agency.
coats, I like it.
I remember one time we had an open house at the mosque in
Yeah.
Windsor, and like we were trying to follow the sunnah, like like no shaking hands with the opposite gender, right?
Yeah.
So like I would go there at the open house day one in the morning. We had the table set up in the lobby, and it was just two brothers there sitting at the table, right? And in my head, I'm thinking, oh man, you know what? Like in this culture, like in North America, like if you don't get a handshake, that comes off as really, really rude. So I was talking to the brothers. I'm just like, and these brothers, they were born and raised in the West too. I'm just like, look, what about this? I have a solution. Set up another table on the other side and have two sisters there, so that when our guests come in, the men, they can shake the brothers' hands, and then the women, they can shake the sisters' hands, right? So just like, yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, who would have thought of that, right? So we're not breaking everything's halal, but at the same time, we're following the urf, like the traditions, and not offending anybody. So they brought this to the board, and they had so much trouble trying to convince them that we needed to do this. Like, why are we doing this? Why have a sisters table there? We don't want them to be known and seen, like, so sometimes, like, like having a different perspective, it can come in, very handy. I mean, like, I think whatever background we come from, whether it's Black, white, Latino, First Nations, like it's important that the mosque gets your input, but at the same time, like, there's only so much we can do. I mean, like, it's not like we can wiggle our nose and then all of a sudden, like, every white guy likes Muslims. I wish I could be able to do that, but that's not the case.
Do people ever mistake you guys for like racist Muslims, or like somebody who's, like doesn't like other ethnicities? They only like white Muslims. Does anyone ever mistake?
Oh,
you
you
guys
mean
for
like because of Islam for Europeans?
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
See, the thing is,
I'm pretty sure you get slack from that from people who are hypersensitive.
Yeah,
we're not hypersensitive here, but I'm just saying I'm pretty sure you get people like that.
We've gotten criticism, and it's like you said, like the current mindset of the Muslim community is we're all equal, like like no room for racism and everything like that. So people are sensitive to this idea. It's a controversial idea. I mean, like because it's a win-win for both sides, and that's what makes it controversial, because we have two groups who are so opposed to each other that they would rather see both sides lose than both sides gain something.
That's
so
interesting.
hey, it's great, like some white converts marrying each other and being advocates, and giving dawah to other white people, and white converts come in and they have people that they can feel comfortable with, and like having more white Muslim families so that we can have this not just now but for generations to come. Hey, that's all great, but somewhere in some dark basement, David Duke is smiling somewhere because there's more white people, like we don't want to give them the satisfaction. And then on the alt-right side, a lot of them just don't want Islam to succeed at all. So we're at an impasse where they just and again, I'm just talking with like the people who are like on the very extreme. I know there's a lot of commonalities there where like this could work, not just for the Muslim community but also for like European people of European descent, like who would agree, yeah, this is a good idea. I mean, this would help bridge the gap between this current class of civilizations that we got going.
Robert, I got a question for you.
Sure. Here he comes.
What is white culture? I hear this often, like the preservation of our identity. I mean, on your point number 2 here on the website. The white Muslim sub-community wants to be known as a group that does not support white supremacy in any way.
Like a Robert Spencer type?
Marshall, yeah, of course you don't want to be supporting white supremacy. Not the concept, I'm assuming. I think this is talking about white supremacist groups, right? Or
like a Robert Spencer type?
Yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah.
we don't agree with his ideology. I mean, I will debate him any day of the week. I'll
Yeah.
debate any of these guys. But
Only
that's
the preservation of our culture and peaceful spreading of the message of Islam to both our home and the black communities in the West. So that's a curious statement in the sense of at least trying to identify what is white culture and what would it seek to preserve. Because I always thought of white people as people who are very appropriative. They like to see and see a various different cultures and kind of take what they like from it and make it part of their own thing, whatever they do. So it's not something bad. I thought it was, one of the angst, I guess, in a lot of white youth these days is that they see all the different immigrant communities of all different backgrounds around the world coming to America, and they see when they sit down for family dinner, they see the same old mashed potatoes and gravy, and they're like, man, our culture sucks. I mean, I genuinely believe that, man. I really think that the white man needs some more culture. They need some more, like, tradition other than Turkey Day, watching football with the family. There's got to be some je ne sais quoi, some kind of undefinable.
But I think isn't it even amongst the white culture, I still know people that are, second generation Irish, or third generation Irish probably, but they still consider themselves Irish, and
but just by name, like, what does that mean anyway, other than St. Patrick's Day? And what is that culture bringing? Like, there's so many different elements to our if I was to bring a new bride to my family and she was from a different background, let's just say, I would have to give a lot of different heads ups, a lot of different, hey, watch out for this. This doesn't, for example, we're from a Hyderabadi family. We're very sensitive, and we would basically, I would basically have to coach her into thinking that, you have to be careful when you use this word, or where we're very open-hearted, but then when you say something that can that doesn't really appreciate the things we did for you, it can be we don't like it, like we want to be
isn't that all humans though, dude?
No, I think
I really don't know where you're getting at, bro.
So I'm just saying, like there's many different facets of various cultures that have.
So are you saying in white culture anything goes, you just do whatever you want and no one's going to ask you? Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I think white people are pretty much, as long as it makes you happy, you do what your thing is, and I always kind of saw that as...
Is that a fair assessment of what he's saying, sir?
I don't know. I can't speak on behalf of all white people.
Well, Robert, don't you think that when you see white families, at least in the media and in whatever the general prevailing sense of what white families are like, it's do what makes you happy as long as you're not bothering anyone else. It's really just kind of that philosophy is prevalent in the household. Try to contribute and help out in whatever way you can if the family needs it. And
are you saying I think what you're trying to say is, Sim, it's already cut you off, Robert. It's more like there's no cultural based morals, like something is actually that you can say, hey, based on our culture, this is why we don't extend our feet in front of our elders.
Right.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think so.
If elder comes in the room, your feet are extended, you pull your feet
like in Desi culture. In Desi culture, you don't have your feet spread out when people are visiting, right?
Yeah.
It just seems rude.
So you're saying that cultural based morality is something that you're saying that white people don't have?
I'm saying white people don't have anything. It's
shots fired. Bang bang.
I mean this in the most endearing and loving way. I think there's something to be admired in that as well, because there's not. When I go
You're not hard-headed.
When I go to Robert's house, or if he so choose to invite me over, I don't have to really be walking on eggshells, because I don't have to be really worrying about a whole lot of cultural rules and things like that I have to abide by.
What would you say about that, sir? I think this is going to turn to a good debate. Let's make this into a debate.
No, it is a good debate. I think you kind of have to dig deep, because I didn't really notice the cultural differences until I converted to Islam.
Yeah.
So as a dear friend of mine, I was talking to him about this. Another white convert, he's from Italian background, and he was pointing out that in Western cultures, this is just for white cultures, but also like Mexican culture as well. There's far more etiquettes outside of the home, and almost no etiquettes in the home, right? In Eastern cultures, it's the inverse. So there, like when you go over to a house for like an Arab family, or a Pakistani family, there's etiquettes. Like this is a guest in your home. So like you sit them down in the majlis, and like you give them tea and then biscuits, and then it's very formal, right? So whereas in Western cultures, it's like mi casa y su casa. Like you sit down, you put your feet up, you make yourself at home. You want to get some lemonade, go ahead. But I'd say there's still cultural norms. It's just.
I remember watching a TV show once, and the mom scolded her son for keeping the elbows on the table.
Yeah.
In our family, that's perfectly fine. You can have the elbows on the table.
Yeah.
In Indian family, I don't know. Is it fine in your family?
Yeah, we could have our feet on the table, I guess.
No, you can't.
Shut
up.
No, you're right.
Stop patronizing me.
I think we're big on like, I guess, timeliness, like lateness. Like you don't want to be like a second late. That's a big taboo.
Yeah.
That's a great thing, yeah. Which I've wrestled with my entire life.
In Canada, we're big on opening doors here. Like this is a big thing. Like if you it's almost like a norm. Like if you're walking out of a building or into a building, right? And someone's even within like 20 feet.
Oh yeah,
you'll hold the door open until that.
You have to remember, Canadians have a different culture than Americans.
In America, we do that too.
No, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying Canadians actually, when you think of Canadians, I think the reason why Americans actually don't like Canadians, because Canadians look like white Americans, but they actually have a culture.
No, they're very nice, and they're actually,
very nice. But I'm saying that comes from
they're
culture.
compassionate.
They're compassionate, and they have like a certain Canadian identity. But they look just like Americans. They're all considered North America. So I think that's one of the reasons why Americans don't really like Canadians too. I get that weird feeling. Do you get that feeling too from Americans?
Well, here, I mean, with our American counterparts, Canada's always been kind of an anomaly where, we want to set ourselves apart from the States, in our eyes, like when we see Americans, everyone's got a gun.
Yep.
You go to meal, there's, you eat like 10 pancakes. Everything's like huge portions.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay corral there, whereas here it's just way more laid back. One American brother that I talked to, who came to Canada, actually, he's also a convert. He said that like the gas stations here, you'll see like all these bottles of like motor oil, like just sitting outside in the gas station that you can buy, or windshield wiper fluid.
Yeah.
You take it, you bring it in, you pay for it. Like that would never happen in the States. Like it'd be gone in like 20 minutes. Everyone would take it all. So I don't know. We're just way more chill here. Maybe because it's colder. I don't know. I think a lot of it has to do with.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
We're more chill here because it's colder there. What a genius. But do you feel like this has been a session now that two brown guys just have a white guy cornered, and it's our opportunity to bring out our evil ideas that we always thought about them, and now you're going to resolve it for us? Because the same thing's happening now that you said on your website. You're resolving our problems right now too on this podcast.
Oh no, I don't want to do that.
We've used you for resolving our problems again.
We both have enough to deal with, trust me.
Yeah, no, we just like to keep it lighthearted, and honestly, dude, I know I see things. I try to see things for what they are, and dude, there's certain cultural things that people don't like to talk about, and hey, man, if we can talk about it, it's totally cool. You know.
Point number 4.
Sim's been researching while we've been talking.
I'm open to adjusting these points, by the way.
We will make sure that our sisters, no matter their skin color, will have full participation and voice in our talks and meetings, as long as their honor and rights to privacy are respected. This includes being able to pray and fulfill their Islamic obligations at each other's events. Now, I understand, based on skin color, of course everyone should have a voice, but why do you want the woman to have a voice?
Because they actually have a voice when they talk.
Yeah, and they cause problems.
Yeah, it causes problems.
Well, we kind of, yeah. I mean, part of it is we also want to end this kind of like gender war that's going on. I mean, like, like there's a lot of Muslim women are getting into feminist groups at the universities and everything. They're
Yeah.
finding a home there, and
And then they bring
like,
that home over to the masjid.
But he's saying that you have to give them also a place where you're going to talk about things about Islam in a transparent manner, and that's going to be a lot better for them. And if they're in the environment,
Yeah.
it'll change those views.
Yeah. I just very suspicious of the sisters.
This is very suspicious of the sisters.
I'm just joking. I'm kidding with you guys.
I know
If you guys are new to the Mad Mamluks, you guys got
There's
to
a
know.
reason why there's mad there. We're mad.
This is a
crazy.
show for humor, and we like to laugh, and we love the sisters. MashaAllah, we love everything they do for our communities. Are we okay now, Sheikh?
I got another lighthearted story if you guys want.
Yeah, go
Oh,
ahead,
please.
So this is 2006, and me and my friend, Muslim friend, this was after Isha prayer. This was when they were getting ready for the Super Bowl in Detroit, right? So all my friends, my non-Muslim friends, were like, yeah, we gotta go to Windsor, we gotta go to the casino, we gotta find some like celebrities and take photos with them because like the whole world's coming to Detroit. And me and my friend Isha prayers over is like, hey, you want to go get a shawarma? She's like, yeah, sure. So we go to this shawarma place in downtown Windsor. We sit down, we sit down to eat our food, and who walks in but Tony Siragusa of the Baltimore Ravens and like two other football stars walking out at the same time. So it's like my friend looks, we were huge football fans. So my friend looks at me, he's like, dude, that's Tony Siragusa. So I look, he's like, oh my God, it is. So they just went in to get shawarma. Who would have thought, right? So
who would have thought?
They sit down, they sit down to eat their food. We didn't know who the other two guys were. So we start striking up a conversation with these dudes. They could tell we were Muslim because my beard was much longer back then. I was in my Salafi phase. So anyway,
I love the way he says it too, Salafi phase. That's pretty dope, actually.
So Siragusa's like, what are you guys, Al Qaeda?
Oh,
so,
no.
Oh my God.
Dude, this is going to make headlines. Yes.
So my one friend whose body's like, no, we're Al Canada.
Okay.
And the other two guys just burst out into laughter. Like they're just laughing. They're like high-fiving us.
Can you make the thumbnail for this video and like the title, like clickbait, like Saragusa calls Muslim white people Al Qaeda?
Oh my God! I'm gonna get Siragusa fired. No. Tony, I didn't mean it.
No, Sim, this is our big break, bro.
This is our big break.
This is our big break. This is where we get rich.
Sorry, Tony. Take one for the team.
This is where we get rich.
His name.
No, it's okay. I know you meant samosa. You meant Terry samosa. I know.
So
anyway, yeah. So we were high like that. Yeah. It turns out that the Tony's two friends were actually from like the Balkans. So like my friend,
that's cool.
Bosnian, he starts speaking like Bosnian with these guys.
Oh,
that's
really?
Dope.
Yeah. And then the Arab shawarma owner, like he had no idea who this guy was.
Yeah.
He was like giving him like free baklava and stuff. And these guys were like smoking cigars when there's like. You can't smoke in like a building at this point, but they're smoking. They don't care. They're like smoking cigars and stuff.
It's always funny whenever I meet Balkan people. It's like I get really excited about. Oh, you're from the Balkans. I'm expecting to meet a Bosnian or a Croat, but then they say I'm a Serb, and then I'm like, oh, okay. So like, oh, not Assalamualaikum, but I just like, oh, how you doing? We try to make the conversation real short because I don't know if he hates Muslims or something. So
yeah. I mean, with that too, like we have good Bosnian brothers on our group as well. So their struggle is very similar as well because the Balkans is a very interesting region. It's very diverse, and they've had a history of unfortunately struggle between Muslims and Christians. But at the same time, if you're from that region, you have this instant connection with them because the languages are so similar. Like you look at Novak Djokovic, like he has a relationship with all the different people from that region, Bosnia, Croatia. So like I said, they're in the same situation as us. Like we're Muslim, we're not necessarily visibly Muslim, but at the same time we have this responsibility to portray the best possible image to the people who are in the same region as us. So but yeah, no, it was the guy's probably listening to this. He's a good guy, Alamir. Like that's the guy, Bosnian brother. He's in Saudi now, but we were good friends for like a long time. So,
yeah. Alamir, who's he?
Yeah, he's the Bosnian brother that I was telling you about.
Oh, yes.
The shawarma place. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember the Russian brother who started the website.
Oh,
Tell
that's
us,
Haroon. Yeah.
yeah, tell us a little bit about him. What's his deal? And what part of Russia is he
We've
from?
messaged back and forth several times. We haven't actually spoken over the phone as of yet, but like he is part of the co-founder of this website because like his situation is different because he's in Russia, and with like Russia being in kind of the middle of between East and West, there's Islamophobia in Russia as well too, but there's also this idea of like Russian identity and that the fact that they think that a lot of people don't think Muslims fit that identity, but they really do. I mean, like they're ethnically Russian. I mean, like
Yeah.
they're like Russian food and everything, and so I need to talk more to this brother. I mean, like we definitely agree on a lot of points. He actually does not prefer the term white because like I guess in Europe that's their identity, your European identity, Russian identity,
Yeah.
Finland, Czech, whatever. But in the States, unfortunately, like there's this huge effort to like divide people, and the best way to do that is by saying, oh, this person's white, this person's
Well,
black.
it's such a broad term, right?
Yeah.
I know.
It's not even talking about ethnicity. It's just really gone to the most basic element of human identity, just the skin color. It's not. I mean, Turks are white, right? If you look
Yeah.
at their skin color, if you look at even many areas of China, and you will see like they're pretty much white. They're really fair skinned. Like you can't get any whiter than that. But you get what I mean. It's like it's not even like representing an ethnicity
Yeah.
or
What they
any
mean
kind
by
of
is they
tribe.
count as
Yeah,
Anglo-Saxon when they say white, right?
yeah. So,
Yeah.
and if you even see many Syrians,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
they
Yeah.
look completely. They have blonde hair, blue eyes.
Yeah.
Some of them look Irish.
Yeah.
Me and my wife walk down the street, they think that she's the convert, like she's actually older than I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
What was I going to talk about? Yes. So him being a Russian, he's got. Does he have to worry a little bit about or anything about how his with the whole thing of with Trump and Russia and all these different elements of Russian people influencing the United States and the politics over here? Is he at all concerned about that or no?
I haven't really talked to him about that. I don't want to put words in
Yeah.
his mouth. So I definitely want to catch up with him too. I'm sure he'd be willing to have a conversation or dialogue here. But I've been translating a lot of his articles as well too. Like trying to get into different languages. But I'll definitely I want to ask him about it. But let me get back to you on that. I'm not sure how that relates to like this relationship between Putin and Trump. But like there is some obviously like in Europe you're right, and they probably get a lot of difficulties too because there is a lot of Islamophobia and people worried about their maintaining their ethnic identity and everything. So I mean it's they need this website just as much because it's an alternative solution. It's like it's not the most politically correct, but at the same time, like like this has been we feel like we're Brad Pitt in Moneyball. Like we're presenting this new idea, and then like all this, and like the old guard of the Muslim like mosques and everything. They're like the scouts. They're just like, oh, this isn't gonna work. This is the way we've been doing it for hundreds of years, and like, but like
you know what happened, Sheikh Amr, you went to the ISNA with us, didn't you, in Houston?
Yeah.
Do you remember when the white supremacists were there?
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened was it was recently uncovered through the organization it's a company called Cambridge Analytica, who was doing a lot of the investigations related to the Russians influencing a lot of the elections and whatnot in the United States. They were organizing these type of racial conflicts that were happening, and the people from Cambridge Analytica came on Rogan's show, and they explained about how the Russians were actually influencing white supremacists or people who were anti-Islam to show up at Muslim events so that they can create a conflict happening. And that was so shocking because we were actually there and we had no idea why the heck these white supremacists showed up at.
I was just like, dude, out of all the times and places happening now and we're in Houston.
Yeah, and as they were talking about it, I'm like, oh crap, that we were actually at that event that they're talking about. They're talking about a Muslim gathering, and the Black Panthers showed up. Yeah, the Black Panthers showed up to defend or protect the Muslims or whatnot, and they were armed to the teeth. And what's happening is that there's a level, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is that there's another level of conflict that's being perpetuated on a state level, and this is mainly from the Russian government, at least in the United States, that to create conflict or discord among American society so that people don't get along with each other, and they have turmoil and conflict separating themselves based on color and religion and every other marker of identity. But it was just that's crazy, man. That whole event was so surreal because you saw a face of America you never saw.
We would never see that in Chicago.
In Chicago, you'd never see that. You don't even see a handgun in Chicago, unless you go to a shooting range. But in Texas, it was just like you saw guys like you ever see
ladies too, man.
Yeah. You remember seeing Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yeah.
You know those soldiers just armed to the teeth. They have
the bullets are on their body,
all over their shoulders and everything. That's how that scene was, Robert. It was so incredible. I'm driving
marching.
I'm driving in the Uber and I'm like looking through the window. I'm like, what the hell is going on? This is like a war zone. Like something. You remember Kurt Russell's Escape from L.A., Escape from New York? Like this post-apocalyptic future. I'm like, this is what it could be in 20, 30 years if if things line up the way they are. There's going to be people just armed gangs throughout the city who are controlling their interests and resources throughout the country if everything goes to hell,
Oh man.
But I mean, things are. No one can say for sure what the future is, but if this whole economy is shaped up to be a bubble and it pops the way many prognosticators or whatever people who are able to predict the future of the American economy, if it really does collapse the way they're saying, it can be really bad. And I'm really scared in that way that we kind of everything
built up just goes away.
Not just that, like all the conflict and hatred that is between, or animosity that's between groups.
Oh yeah, it's gonna come out.
It'll come out big time in that kind of a post-apocalyptic setting.
Trump was the initiator of that. I mean, I know people kind of thought that racism went away and stuff, but he normalized it, and he was smart in that sense where he got those people's support.
You're seeing that as well in many different state actors through the India with the BJP and what they're doing now with the Muslims. I don't know if you ever if you heard about what the news is happening from India, Robert, but they've prevented Muslim minorities from coming into the country. They've explicitly removed they said every other minority from a Muslim country can come, but Muslims. So a whole lot of racist policies that are coming. They're appealing to the base level of a society that is focusing on hatred and on prejudice and exploiting those qualities of a people to propel themselves to power. So just like Trump did, just like the guy in the Tories party in the UK, the BJP in India, and so on and so forth. Everyone is utilizing these inherent fears that we have against each other to come into power, right?
It's a terrible situation. I mean, there's such a large group of different YouTubers who produce a lot of anti-Islam, and they mix it in with a lot of anti-feminism, anti-transgenderism, and all this all these other left wing issues, but like and their main goal is like they're anti-immigration, anti-Islam, and they appeal to a lot of people, not just on the far right, but also like those who voted for Trump. And the thing is, you have like a blogger like Stefan Molyneux, like he's got like hundreds of thousands of viewers, and the guy lives in like in the GTA, he lives in Mississauga, and I talked to one of like the Muslim leaders in that city, like, hey, have you ever heard of this guy? And he's like, I never heard of him. And just like like the like Abdul Hakim Quick said, Muslims haven't even entered the discourse yet. So you have people like presenting all these different arguments and coming up with all these facts, and articles and like historical approaches, and there's no Muslims really countering that, coming to the table and giving their end of the story. So we need to be able to sit down, have debate and dialogue with these people, because the people on the fence, they're going to see all these videos and all these facts and all these books, and they're going to go like, oh, like these people have the like a strong case to say that the Muslims hate us, that their Islam is a detriment to society. And then and in response, Muslims, they either don't say anything or they just say, well, these people are racist, let's make it illegal. So they're going to look at that and go, okay, well, the Muslims didn't provide any counter argument, so who are we going to agree with? You could take an example like the young age of Aisha. Like, I mean, and then, there's Muslims who have made efforts to have their own like channels and stuff. Like Brother Daniel, like he's done a lot of work on that.
Who, Daniel? Who?
Daniel Hakikaju.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to mention him these days. Some people don't like.
Am I going to be blocked now? Is there a white van on my? Okay.
My heart fluttered a little bit when he said that name.
Sorry. You can cut that out if you want.
We have a little TMM group, a WhatsApp group, and some people who didn't like him, actually, a whole bunch of them just got up and left. Like, stop sharing his articles, and they just like. Some other people are sharing his articles. We're a diverse group. We are, we like to host every idea and every opinion within the realm of reason and ration. And some people were sharing his articles, and they got fed up with it. And instead of having a debate around it or a discussion around it, they just completely got up and left. And I was very disappointed in them that, after being or listening to so many of our episodes where you learn about how to objectively analyze and look at the truth and try to decipher whatever ideas that may come your way, instead of having this deep, ephemeral, like
Cancel
deep response. You're not even engaging. You're just like, I don't like how that sounds, so I'm leaving, and you just run off like a little baby. It was disheartening in that sense. But go on. I'm sorry, Robert. You were saying something about Daniel.
No. I mean, I think that there are voices who, who are willing to, sit down with people, well-educated people from the Muslim community, who are not on the far right, but they might be more in the center, or maybe even right of center. But they are willing to objectively discuss with people. I'm talking about people like Jordan Peterson and like Brandon Martinez and Karen Strawn, although Karen Strawn focuses more on like egalitarianism, and even those who may not have may have a negative opinion of Islam, like Sargon of Akkad.
Okay,
we don't agree with these people, but at the same time, like,
by the way, Sargon, I saw him at Disney World a few months ago.
You did?
I was about to go in the program. I'm like, wait, maybe he doesn't like me. So I just, he was like rushing to go to a ride or something, so I didn't stop him. But anyway, go ahead. Yeah, Sargon and Robert, Jordan Peterson and many of these type of YouTubers who are, who have a base that is definitely problematic. You can't ignore that. There are people within his base, not all of them, maybe not even 20% of them, but there is a sizable minority within their base that is utilizing their work, their opinions on things, and using that to further their white supremacist ideology. Would you
Yeah.
say that's accurate or no?
Yeah, there's definitely elements of those people who will take those ideas and then take it to an extreme. So they'll copy and paste what Jordan Peterson says, right?
No.
If you hear some of his lectures, he's very honest. Like he doesn't know much about Islam, so he doesn't like
Yeah.
to speak on behalf of Islam. But at the same time, I think like a well educated brother, not just with the religion, but also with the society. Like I think like a Shabir Ali, or
Yeah.
like someone who's well respected. They
He,
can actually we can actually sit down and have a conversation, and bounce off ideas off each other.
what
Uh,
happens? What happens, Robert, is that these guys they go to Sam Harris, who's their like almost ideological head or figurehead, or someone who's basically gives them a lot of suggestions on guests or people to invite or engage with, and they all seem to be going towards Ayan Hirsi Ali, who seems to be like some kind of figurehead or some kind of authority that she's made herself out to be on Islam and Muslims and everything related to the relationship that Muslims should have with the West. She's become this, or Majid Nawaz has become the
The icons,
the icons or
the lizards.
the go-to people for
Yes.
these people to engage with. And I think it's important what Robert just mentioned, that it's important that white Muslims or whatever Muslims that have any ability to engage with these audiences, that they tell them like, hey, these people don't really represent us. We need for you to talk to a person like Muhammad Hijab or Hamza Sources. I think they would be very meaningful, fruitful discussions or especially even Firas, not Khatib, Firas Sahabi
Yeah.
from TriStar Gym. He is the he's a very knowledgeable brother who is
George St. Pierre's
George St. Pierre's
main
trainer,
Yeah.
and he's from Canada as well, and he can talk to Jordan Peterson as well. So I think these are good options that
Yeah.
we can explore.
and I wish you guys the best. You guys have this wonderful platform here, and like it's a lot of work, and like you guys have to deal with a lot of voices, and a lot of everyone's gonna agree on everything.
Yeah.
Like so like inshallah one day like you guys will be able to maybe get to these people to discuss, because right now like there's not really many Muslim voices who are actually reaching out and establishing that dialogue.
Yeah.
Like I think there was one someone who was a conservative, like he actually had a debate with someone. It was someone from like Vice News. It was like a reporter, a Muslim reporter from Vice,
Yeah.
discussing FGM. So I mean, she did the best she could, but I mean, like like we need to get like a think tank going where we have a good combination of people with good sound religious knowledge, but also who understand like the context that we're living in the West. So it's that I think is important, because like I said, there are people. I was debating with like one of these like social justice warrior Muslims when I was in university, and he was saying, why should we even bother like talking to these people? And I told him, like, look, it's not them per se. It's that there are people on the fence who are listening, and they're not hearing any response from us. They walk down the street and they see Muslims and they don't talk at all. So like we need to address this, to address these issues, because like if we don't, like they're going to hear all these YouTube videos and read all these books and hear all this stuff on the media,
Yeah.
and the Muslims aren't saying anything, so oh well, what they must be saying must be true.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
Well, Robert, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I'm going to let you get to Sunday afternoon football. I know you're a big football fan, so I really apologize for any interruption on that
Oh,
schedule.
I'm sure the Browns have lost already.
Was that a brown joke?
No, no.
Oh,
Oh,
the Cleveland Browns.
no.
I saw what you did there.
Mr.
It's right what they say about you guys.
We figured you out. It's not for Europeans.
Stuff for love. We love you for the sake of a love.
Patriots are winning though. So.
Ah.
See, there you go. Trump supporters.
All right, man. It was fun. Hopefully, we can talk to you again in the future for any other articles or projects that you're working on. Our platform is your platform, so let us know however we can help you and whatever projects you might have coming up.
One more thing though, I wanted to give a shout out because my friends on Facebook wanted me to do my Marv Albert impersonation as like a shout out. Would I be able to do that?
No, absolutely, do it, man. Marv Albert's an iconic basketball announcer for those outside the U.S.
I have to bring up the NBA theme song though.
All right, go ahead, bring it up, man.
Do it.
All right, here we go.
This is gonna be a first.
Oh, really?
So,
Awesome.
yeah, thank you, man. Thank you.
He's showing us his neck.
That's good. The Adam's apple. You gotta have it, bro.
Yeah.
Oh man, I cut myself shaving. I don't want to do that.
It's okay. We can't see the cuts. We could just see the Adam's apple.
Thank God it's not Eid
If you could just
al-Adha.
edit that out, that would be
Thank
great.
God it's not Eid al-Adha. Sim goes, thank God it's not what? Such a weirdo, dude.
Oh,
Thank-
Whoa, whoops.
Here it
Whoa,
is.
whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh, I accidentally clicked on the outro. I'm sorry, bro.
You guys ready?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Here we go. Oh yeah, it's at a. Okay, here we go. You guys ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can you hear it?
Mm-hmm.
This is Marv Albert coming to you from Toronto, Ontario, in Scotiabank Arena, where the Toronto Raptors take on the Golden State Warriors. Kawhi Leonard, who left a year ago, now playing for the Clippers. Toronto Raptors come out with Pascal Siakam and Serge Ibaka. That's
Awesome.
it.
That's pretty dope.
That's good, man.
Wow. Maybe he should do the intro and outro. You should record him. You should do it for
Yeah, I
Mad
could do
Mamluks
that.
now.
Yeah.
Welcome to Mad Mamluks. This is Sim and Am.
We'll have the little
pretty
NBA
dope.
trumpet playing in the background.
That's pretty dope, dude.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, man. We'll see. For our listeners out there, anyone who's willing to or interested in supporting us, help us out on patreon.com/the Mad Mamluks. Alternatively, you can utilize PayPal to help us on themadmamluks.com/donate. Make sure you like and subscribe on the video. And if you have any thoughts relating to any ideas that were discussed on the show, make sure you put a comment in the comment section below. We'll see y'all later. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Take care, guys.
All right, my man.
Take care. Bye. Are we done? Can you hear me guys still?